You're very active in this area, and it's not what you think, it's what you know. You've done a lot of research, so you come at this empirically, and that's what is so impressive about what you espouse about this. What got you so interested in this?
Well, what got me interested in this was my own personal experience as a teenager, as I explained to you when we last met, talking about uh, this group of guys from my high school that came to my home one night, shot and killed my dog. And I had this very strong urge to retaliate against them. And I wanted to kill them as a result of that. Uh, I was able to overcome that at the very last second. I mean, by the time I stopped myself, I had a gun in my hands, but I wasn't able to shake the desire for justice that I was seeking. And we have two meanings for justice. There's justice that's fairness and equity and righteousness, and there's justice that means retaliation and vengeance. And the one that I was seeking was retaliation and vengeance. And I couldn't shake it. I became a lawyer for it, and then I ended up paying a high price as a lawyer as well. By spending a life where I was being paid to hurt other people. I mean, a litigator, a lawyer, is often being paid on behalf of a client to retaliate against, to hurt the person who hurt them. Whether you're a plaintiff's lawyer or a defense lawyer and you're trying to defend that. But in either side of that model, it's really what it's about is that socially acceptable retaliation, which is better than street vengeance. It's a step forward in human progress, but I believe we can go beyond this, beyond that level.
You say you did this as a lawyer and paid a high price for it. Did you think that you were in the loop that you've now identified as a lawyer? Did you get the payoff in the moment when you were a lawyer and you would exact that pound of flesh?
I sure did. I got it over and over again. And that, at the time, this is 15 years ago, I didn't understand what's happening to me, but I sure knew that every time I would win at something as simple as a motion or even an email, a pissing contest between lawyers, and that's what happens. Every one of those gets you a little high or a little shot, a little victory, where you feel, kind of high as a kite. And then you're left sort of feeling worse, but chasing it down again and wanting that hit again and again, and again. And what was particularly fascinating for me is I was seeing this same behavior in my clients. I began to think that I was selling them a drug because they were willing to pay me ungodly sums of money to get these hits of pleasure as well every time I was able to, inflict some pain or suffering on the other side, whether it was the other side's lawyer or the person that they were representing. As this progressed, it so conflicted with, what my inner values were for as being a human being and starting to realize I'm being paid to hurt other people. That was a tough realization for me, and I didn't see a way out of it. And I felt very hooked into this lifestyle and into this mess. And this brought me to a point of such depression and despondency, that I was considering suicide at one point. And that realization that and this is what the thing was, I felt I wanted justice against me. I wanted revenge against me at that point. And that's when I thought, this looks like an addiction. This doesn't seem like normal behavior. This seems like what I knew from people who were addicted to narcotics or alcohol or tobacco. This seemed like that. But no, there was nothing in the literature. Nobody was at that time, and only until recently, largely me, have figured this out and concluded that this is an addictive process. And that only came really from my personal experience of looking at addiction and seeing myself as an addicted person. And then, God struck with this fantastic set of neuroscientists who have been doing studies at what's going on inside the human brain when somebody is harmed and they're retaliating. And to my amazement, the exact same brain structures and neural pathway that's activated for substance addiction is being activated or was being activated for somebody like me who's caught in this revenge-seeking cycle for pleasure. And that's what it's all about. When somebody hurts you, you retaliate for pleasure. You're trying to make yourself feel better from the pain of the grievance.
Now, when you say it's the same pattern as we see in addiction at a neurological level, we are able to see on fMRI the same pathways light up that we see with addiction to heroin, opioids, whatever. There are certain pathways that we can see light up that involve the pleasure centers of the brain, the motivational centers in the limbic system, and all that cause people to seek this out again and again and again. And we've been able to see those same pathways light up with certain other non-chemical experiences. One of them is what you're describing here. So when you say it's the same neurological pattern, that's what you're talking about, and that's why I say this is empirical.
Right. There is empirical evidence now that we have that shows that grievance and revenge seeking looks like other behavioral addictions, such as gambling addiction,
Right.
sex, food, internet, gaming addictions, those things that are considered behavioral addictions. You're not ingesting a substance, you're engaging in a behavior. So we think about the definition of what is an addiction. An addiction is engaging in a behavior that is harmful to you and you can't stop doing it, right? That's a compulsive behavior that is harming you. Gambling harms you. Gaming ultimately can become harmful. And revenge seeking is the most harmful behavior you can engage in, because what you're doing is to gratify your lust for pleasure, you have to harm somebody else to get that. That's the most dangerous behavioral, and really it's even more dangerous than a substance addiction, because with substance addiction, the person that's most hurt is the addict who's ingesting the narcotics, and their family, of course, and sometimes the community can be ravaged by these things. But that's not at the same scale of world war. And it's not the same scale as nuclear war. We all know if the world ends as a result of a nuclear strike, that'll be because nations gave in to their craving for revenge and they launched their retaliatory response. End of civilization. That's how dangerous this particular human behavior is. It's been part of our lives since Cain and Abel, but we're just now discovering why.
Yeah. Now, let me not put the cart before the horse too much. Here's the question. In your opinion, is this always dysfunctional?
No. So there would be an argument, and evolutionary psychologists and evolutionary biologists would make some form of argument that would say, look, humanity was selected into doing this. But some of the suggestion is, well, we were selected into becoming super predator revenge seekers, which is kind of what we've become here in 2022. We're just
Right.
getting better and better at being able to instantly measure that we've been wronged and retaliate with all forms of force, whether it's, from a tweet to an AK-47 or, an AR-15. And evolutionary psychologists would say, well, maybe we were selected into this through evolution as a process for helping to pacify. In other words, to cause people in a society to form norms, or follow norms, I should say. Norm behavioring, which is to say keeping people in line, right? If there's somebody that's a bully running around, you want to stop the bully. You can stop the bully by retaliating against the bully. The problem with that argument, though, is that we know now that it's the desire for revenge that is driving the bully. So, is it really an accurate way of looking at it? If natural selection had wanted us to be revenge predators in order to create peace in a society, it would have selected us to be forgiveness addicts, not revenge addicts. Because The people who forgive, who are the people in our society who are the best at forgiving the fastest and to do that repeatedly, are the people that are the least threatening in any society, and the most likely to maintain peace in their community versus people who are violent. Now, that doesn't mean, and I'm not saying, and I've had this question many times, I'm not saying that a person who commits a crime, a violent crime, shouldn't be incarcerated as quickly as possible while they present a threat to society. But I am saying that there's a different way of deterring that violence or preventing it. And that's now a public health prevention and treatment approach. And I'm glad in your introduction you mentioned prevention. And public health is all about prevention and treatment, not just one or the other. And this is a different approach from only relying on prisons and law enforcement to work our way out of a dangerous, violent society. It doesn't work. It's failing. I mean, we have to all acknowledge we have the best police forces, the most well-armed, the most surveillance we've ever had in society. We have all sorts of ways to be able to pound people into submission, but the pounding into submission isn't working. And just adding more retaliation from the government really isn't going to solve the problem. We need now more of a prevention and treatment approach from the ground up that says we're not going to just retaliate against people. We're going to show them how to manage these dangerous revenge cravings from youth. And we're going to, in adulthood, when somebody's at a risk, we're going to help teach them how to recover from their addiction just the way we do with addicts. Back in the 30s and 40s, back in Prohibition time and before, when alcohol and drug addiction was becoming a significant danger in society, the thought was these are moral deviants, and we need to use law enforcement to pound them into submission and pound this addiction out of them. And you know, as a psychologist, that doesn't work. You cannot law enforcement your way out of an opioid crisis, and you really can't law enforcement your way out of a violence crisis either. That's what I think we're going to have to come to reckon with in society, is where you're going to need more than just more cops, although we need more cops.